Hello everyone, it is Christine here and I'm back to do some work on my Colour Inspirations project, which is a fabulous, fun, experimental project being hosted by Annie Claxton over at Arty Farty Annie. I will link to her and her playlist for this project in the description. I'll also link to the playlist that I've got of my videos and the particular sort of tack that I'm taking with it. So in my last episode, I was playing around with clamshells. I had made this little clamshell book cover, but I've done some further work on that with the current prompt, which I'll come to in a moment. And then I showed you how I create the clamshells and stitch them together and created what I thought was going to be a little wrap to go on my sketchbook, but I've actually come up with a different idea for this, which I will show you in a moment. So with my book cover, I've attached one of my fun little vintage style fabric covered buttons with a beautiful vintage embroidery on it. I just love making these. I've got my little jar full of lovely buttons here and I've been using them, and I'm thinking I'll be using a second one in this project as well, which I've covered the back of. So that's my little book cover, which you'd seen last episode. I've subsequently lined it. I still need to stitch the bottom because I wanted to show you how I'm doing the lining. So this way I can show you the inside and then show you the stitching process. This fabric I'm using on the inside came from, I think it was either a doona cover or a sheet, but a vintage one from an op shop. But it just has the most lovely, this pattern on it, but it also has some border sections which just remind me of beautiful sort of William Morris style imagery. So just love it. So yeah, I've created a lining for the book cover, and originally I was thinking that the book cover would be the place where I would stitch in these pages, which in a previous episode I had dyed with well, not dyed, painted really, or mark made on them using my happy Christmas present of Inktense blocks, over which I'd then collaged papers. And then as part of this current prompt, which is all about textures, I've just been playing with texture on one of the pages. So I've been adding little design elements, vintage Suffolk puffs, stitchery of little leaves, really just playing with the sort of leaf and plant idea, because I'd already drawn these rough leaves in as part of the making of the background, putting little textured stitches here, little knots, stitching into the rickrack, little flowers, buttons, all sorts of just, yeah, playing around and getting everything nicely sort of stitched down. But really these are just little sheets, I guess, little fabric sheets that are just like the pages in a sketchbook where you can just play, and the fact that they've already got things on them, it kind of means that you're freed up. You just sort of start playing basically. And so I don't want to form these into a book yet, because it'll be much harder to stitch into them when they're in a book. So I'd like to keep them loose while I still work through and add things to them, whether for this project or for other projects. So I want a way that I can use this little book essentially as a bit of a, like, I guess a slow stitch folio is how I'm thinking of it. And I want it to have a few purposes. So one, to store these. And that's where I had the idea that rather than using this as a wrap, once I'd put the little edging, which matches the lining, and I put the backing on it as well, I thought I could stitch it along the bottom once I've finished stitching there. And then put one of my little fabric buttons on the top, and then have a little bit of a twine, or this is just some Appleton's wool, attach it up the top here, wrap it around, and then that would hold the pages in place. And I could take this out when I'm going to wait for an appointment or something, have this with me, pull out a page, do some stitching. So then I was thinking, how else can I make it a nice little self-contained slow stitch folio? And that's where I decided to use this lovely other bit from the sheet and make myself just a little slip-in pouch that could sit on this side of the folio. And so all I did was folded in the edges added a backing, so used this on the front, another piece on the back, and then folded the ends over just to make a length that's the right length for this. So yeah, I'd folded actually, I think, yeah, no, I'd taken a single piece of fabric, folded it over, and then I just stitched along this side here to hold that. And so I'm thinking that can go here. I'd put a stitching down the bottom and up the top. And my plan for this is that it will be a little place where I can put some of my threads. Obviously it will be anchored, and they can just sit in there and be available to me when I open up the folio. I'll have some threads that I can immediately stitch with. I could even put in slip sort of things like my little card threads as well. They can just sort of, yeah, slip in there, and I think they'll be held securely enough, because what I'm then planning is to just have this little closure on the front using the button and a piece of twine that's attached at the back, and that will just hold everything really securely, I think. And there's one more element I'm planning to add in here, because obviously when I'm stitching I will need a needle or two, so I'm going to use one of my little Ort balls, which hopefully by the time you see this video I will have shared my making Ort ball video, and I'll include a link to that, and I think I'll just probably stitch that down here, and then it's just a place that when I'm working I can sort of just treat it as an upright pin cushion, but when I'm traveling with this I can just sort of stick the pin into the little pin cushion, and it can just travel flat and held safely in here. I mean, I can also keep pins in this, but I guess over time it might start to damage it a bit, so I thought this might be a good little solution. So I thought we could put it all together so you get an idea of how I've approached it, and if you want to do something similar yourself. So move everything out of the way, and then the other thing I did, because the current prompt is all about texture, I actually cut this out thinking I might put this on my Roxy Journal of Stitchery pouch, which you can see here, and I've even added my little key, but I'll share that in the Roxy video. I won't mix up the projects too much, but then it was a bit too big and not quite the right colouring for that, so I decided to add that into here because it's just so textural and lovely, and I thought that will just be beautiful because it will sit behind here, and when the pages are in there you won't even know it's there, but when you do have a look it is just something that's really lovely. And down the track, when I do want to construct the book, if I want to do it in here, I can still very happily leave this little back pouch in there, and it can be something where I can still keep loose things associated with the book, or even a little notepad or something, because this will still make a lovely little fabric book. I just love the look of all the different coloured pages there. So yeah, multi-purpose, but for the now I want it to be a little slow stitch folio. So let's grab our needle and some thread. I think I'll just use this darkish thread, and what I'm using is an invisible, pretty invisible ladder style stitch. So I'll just show you on this side. You can barely, well, I can't actually even really see the stitches because it actually secretes the stitches in the little seams, but let me show you. It's not tricky at all, and it's a very handy little stitch if you're doing anything like English paper piecing, but just for putting, yeah, in this case, sheets of fabric together where you folded two seams. And in fact I should show you how I did the outside and the inside. So for the lining it was as simple as getting a piece of this fabric and then folding it at all sides so that it was the right size to be the inner rectangle, and then I just ironed the edges so that they've just got a nice sort of, I guess, sharp edge for me to stitch. And it's good to think about what else you want to stitch on and in what order. Obviously I wanted to do the little stitching of this, and this just has a whole lot of little overcast stitches going all the way around, just using a very neutral coloured thread. I think I used this one. And probably the other thing I should say, because I hadn't done it in the previous video, was I've used this same neutral thread to stitch around the design. Again, playing with texture, which is our current prompt, and it's just given a really lovely effect of just, yeah, stitching all around the outside of the design. And under here, I've used a pink felt, and so that's brought through because I am playing with pink and green as a combination, because that was our previous prompt to look at complementary colours, so green and pink. So I thought it'd be nice just to have a very subtle pink shining through, because this fabric's a little bit transparent, so I can just see that very faint pale pink, but still keeping the outside quite green. Anyway, enough of me yabbering. I will start stitching. So I've got my end secreted in there. So with this stitch, I'll just pop out at the corner, secrete the end inside, so I might even actually just pop through out of the seam if I can. Just start over here. Got quite a long thread, probably didn't need that long, but I just prefer not to have to sort of re-thread as we go. But I'm just going to pull the tail down a smidge. Let's get that end hidden inside. And so with the stitching, you're basically going to take your needle and run it on the inside of one of your bits of fabric. And then you're going to cross directly over and run it. I'm at the corner, so it won't be the best demonstration here, but I'll show you as we go along the rest of the side. So now I'm going to do my next stitch, and I'll pop over to the other side. And my lining's just slightly sort of sticking out a little bit more than I don't want the tail, so tail be gone. Let's tuck the tail in. And then we're going to cross over to the other side, the lighter green, and I'm just going to run my needle a short distance along and pop out with the needle. So the thread is sort of being hidden in the seam of the fabric, and then I'm going to cross to the point directly across and do another stitch where I'm just running the needle along inside the inside the seam. Almost said steam, can't think what words. And then go back to the light side and do another stitch like that, and then come directly across. So you're always starting your next stitch directly across from where the thread came out. So that's why it's called ladder, because all you should really be able to see is the little cross stitches, but they really just disappear in when you tighten up your thread. So as you can see, we just can't even see those little cross stitches there, those little ladder rungs, as it were. So it's a very handy little stitch. So we're just going to work our way along. It won't be that exciting, but if you haven't done ladder stitch before, hopefully it starts to give you a feel for it. So I always just used to do a stitch where I'd be catching sort of both sides and just really overcast stitching, but that's quite visible. And in this case, you just want your two pieces just to kind of meld into each other. So this does work well for that. And so I'm probably just popping forward like 1/2 centimetre, I guess, but you can do them, you can do them smaller, you can do them slightly bigger. You just need to kind of do them enough that you're not going to have anything gaping. And it's good just to kind of tighten your thread up as you go, so you do get that hiding of the stitches. There's a little thread poking out. Oh, that's from my stitching around that I'd done on the outside. So I'm just going to tuck that little tail in so that gets secreted. Tighten my thread up. So yeah, if you're wanting to create a little slow stitch folio, you don't have to do the clamshell outer. You could decorate it however you want it on the outside, but hopefully this gives you a little idea of how you can do an outer, line it, and how you can then put a little back pocket and a little front pocket to hold threads or whatever else you might want to hold in there. So I think it is going to be quite useful. I do love my little project pouches and all those things, but this one will be great for just having some, whether it's for this project and I have the coloured calico with the fabric scraps on it, or otherwise I might just carry around some regular calico and it's just a place I can kind of doodle with thread. Just so nice having our own sort of homemade, home-stitched things to use as part of our projects as well, I think. And it'd make a great gift too if you've got a friend that might just be starting out with slow stitch. You could fill it up with some little fabrics. Wouldn't have to be calico. You could have different little fabrics in that little back pouch area. Almost stabbed myself, but didn't, thankfully. So it's lovely to be finding places to put these beautiful vintage embroideries. They might be off like a tablecloth or a linen that has holes or stains, but you can give new life to the embroidery bits of them or the applique bits of them. Or if you have your own ones that you've kind of created but haven't ever used on anything, yeah, you can use those too. Okay, and I'll just give it a tightening up, and as you can see it just disappears. It's kind of a bit magic, this stitch. You wouldn't think it would work so well, but it does. It's definitely my new favourite stitch for edge, sort of just invisible edging, I guess. I have my favourite decorative edging stitches, like the German knotted stitch. But I thought, yeah, I'll get the border, sort of the pieces stitched down first, and then even when I put those other pockets on down the track, if I ever wanted to remove them, I could remove them without having to remove this outer stitching, whereas if I actually stitched them on at the same time as doing this, then it wouldn't kind of give me that flexibility. But I think they will stay intact anyway, because as I say, it would still work as a fabric book, even with that front pocket and the back little flip. So here I'm just stitching into my little clamshell that forms the corner piece. Just probably want to do something here. Sorry, I just bumped my camera stand, so I'm just going to do an extra little stitch at the corner here. Tightening it up, and I'll then just put a few little ones just in here to make sure we are nice and securely held. And because I'm working with the dark green, it kind of blends into this lining piece. And then I'll take my needle back into the fabric. Oops, wrong direction. I'll just get a nice short end on my thread. And I'll secrete the end into the fabric. So if I cut it off here and then pull my needle in, probably didn't work absolutely perfectly, but I can fix that up afterwards. So next up will be to add our little back pocket. And again, I think I'll use a similar, well, the same stitch I think would work well for that. Oops, that's a different colour thread. I just grabbed this, what I thought was the same thread I was using, but no, it was a different colour. Let's get the right thread to begin with. And so I probably should actually put the button on first, because it'll be easy to sew the button on while this piece is detached from the other. So as you can see, I just did a little backing piece for the button, and all I did was got a bit of felt and then folded the ends of this little fabric over, and then just did some little tiny stitches around. So that's just given me a nice little backing for it. Because some of the buttons, as you can see, are still just stitched at the back, and I haven't yet put any sort of backing on them, which you don't have to do. I just thought I'd do that in case we can see the back at all. And it's fun. It's fun doing this sort of buttony stuff. So I'll actually hide the end of my thread in the button, I think. And then I can just position it where I want it and start putting a few little stitches through to the back, and again using this dark thread, which won't be too visible on this, and this will be the inside of the pocket anyway, or the inside of the flip, whatever we want to call it. I'm just doing little invisible stitches on the back, and then just trying to come through to the front and just create some little holding stitches, because this will just need to be strong enough that it can hold when we're wrapping something around it. So I quite like making these little sort of twists, using buttons as little ties that you can just loop some thread around as a little closure. Don't need to buy snaps or anything. You can just use a button and some thread for a very simple closure. Okay, there we go. Tie a little knot here, and then I'll take my thread back under the button, I think, and hide the end off there. Do another little knot here to be sure. So just making a knot by looping my needle through the thread. Snip that off, and then that will be a lovely little tie. And so for the tie, I'll just need to secrete this little bit of twine, or this little bit of wool into the upper cover. So let's do that now. Got a little knot there. I probably should have actually done this before, but I think I'll be able to slip it in, because the way these stitches work is you've got a little gap. I'll just want to work out exactly, I guess I want it just at that point, so let's see if I can slip it in about here. And then I'll just take the little tail off, and I'll try and just wheedle it in with my needle. But yeah, it's good to think about all your sort of ties before you stitch things together, because then you won't have these little challenges of trying to sort of get it in through the seam. That might be something I have to work on after. Oh no, we've got it in. We've hidden it in there. Good-o. There you go. Hidden, but much better to think about it before you you stitch your pieces together. But sometimes we don't. Sometimes as we do the pieces, the purpose and the way we want to use them reveals itself to us. So let's do the bottom section now. I love how this covered button, just picks up the pinks, the greens, and a little bit of the yellows and other things that were just some additional complementary sort of colours that came in, or little contrasting colours, I guess. So where do I want to secrete this end? That was where I was just up to before, wasn't it? Just get rid of that little tail. So I think I can probably secrete the end of this somehow here. It just pulled through, didn't it? Sometimes you need a bigger knot, or sometimes you just need to not pull it quite so vigorously. Let's get rid of the little tail, and then I can probably just again use my needle to sort of tuck that little knotty bit down, and maybe even just put a little stitch over the top to hold that in place. Using my felt mat to push through the needle because it's a few layers of fabric there. Okay, and then we will start the same stitching process. So I'll just pop up here, and then we'll start stitching. So again, I'm just going to run it, do that ladder stitch, so put a stitch in one seam, and then pop over to the other side and put a stitch in the other side seam. And just because it's starting at the corner, I'm just doing some little stitches to begin with. And I do have a few layers, but I'm just doing the two outermost layers when I'm doing these stitches, because the other layers have been stitched together already. Again, we give it a pull and we get that nice invisible stitching and that beautiful just little, really neat little seam. Well, not seam, really just bringing together of the two fabrics. I guess it is a seam. It's a seam, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes doubt myself when I'm saying words. I'm like, are they the right one? I think it's a seam because a seam brings together two bits of fabric. I'm filming this on Friday. It's Australia Day, which is quite a debated day here in Australia. I do hope they, change the day, change the focus. Be nice to have a day that was of unity for everyone, not where you've got people feeling mixed emotions about it. That's my view. I'm not saying it from a political perspective. I'm just saying it from a perspective of wanting everyone in the community to have a day that they can embrace. Because really that's what a national day should be about, I think. As we'd say, it's not rocket science, but maybe it is. But what I do like about today is that they recognise amazing people that have done incredible things, including 2 doctors and researchers, including one of them that is suffering with melanoma, And they're doing amazing research and amazing work in that space around the treatment of it. And they've already managed to prolong his life, and he's kind of used himself as an experimental case in it. And just the giving of researchers, they're so hours and hours of work, and they're so dedicated to their causes. So it is lovely to see people like that recognised for what they've done. So as you can see, beautiful little seam along there. It's like, it's seamlessly, there you go, seamlessly joins in with the fabric. Just looks like it's meant to be together. So I'll just put a little finishing stitch in to hold it in place, or a couple of little stitches. So I'm just doing little stitches across, and then I'll do a knot and try and secrete the thread again into the fabric. I'll just do another one just to hold it, because it is going to have a little bit of sort of, I guess, pressure on it when it's holding the pages in place. I'll just pop my thread. I can actually probably just secrete it into here, really. I can just put another little knot on the inside. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. And so that will be our little holder for our pages. But I won't put them in yet because we've still got to sew this side, and it's easier to sew when you don't have things in it. So I will need to sew on my little Ort ball needle keep, I think, before I sew down the flap. So I'll do that first. Hopefully you're stitching away or doing your own art project or colour inspirations project or whatever it is you're working on. Which way do I want this? Oops, almost flicked my bauble. These tend to flick around, these baubles. I think I'll put it that way up. It's got a lovely little bit of silk ribbon that's been stitched into it as well. Okay, so I might just bring my needle up halfway along. Always a good way just to fold it and see where your halfway point is. And then I think I'll just take some stitches through. And again, because it's a scrappy Ort ball, it really doesn't matter what additional little stitches I add into it. It's all just adding to the visual interest. I quite like making my Ort balls quite dense. You could do them sort of, softer, but I think this will work well as a little mini pincushion, just being a dense bauble. Just do a few more stitches up into it. Using my mat just to, actually I don't want to put it through there. Just point it out so it comes out on the green section. Not that it's going to matter because it is all going to be stitched down, isn't it? We won't actually see these stitches at the back. And then I'll just tie that off. Put in a little second stitch and knot to hold it. There we go, that'll be great. And then, so where is our middle fold point? It's about there, so I probably just want to space this so it's, probably a bit like that. Got it the right direction up. I'll get myself a new little bit of thread. I'll save that one for another Ort ball for another day. Actually, I've just picked up, I think, the wrong needle. Was that a different needle then? Now I don't know which needle I was using. Not sure. And I think it was this little one because that one's got a squarer end on it. Just going to put a knot in the end of the thread, and then again we can start our process, but I'll secrete the end of the thread into here first. And then let's start the process. So let's come back to the start here. Oops, poked the end of the thread with the needle, which I didn't want to do. I just want to bring my needle out so I can start right at the end. There we go. Probably about like that will work, I reckon. So we'll do our first little stitch. I think I've managed to pull my end through again, but that's okay. Let's just see if I can yank it down. No. Okay, we're not going to stress the small stuff. This is a working folio, isn't it? So yeah, it's been a beautiful warm afternoon here. I got stuck in and did some lawn mowing because Alex is recovering from his operation, so he can't actually do anything physical. He normally does the lawns, but they weren't seriously needing it. I just wanted him to, show me how the lawn... I used to have an electric lawnmower, but this is one of the petrol ones, so I needed him to show me how to get that started and set up. But it's good if you keep on top of the lawn mowing. It just means it's less effort if you keep it nice and shorn. That last stitch just went slightly on the diagonal, so I am just going to fix that up because it's definitely visible rather than... In fact, what I did, I think, was didn't go just straight across. I did go across on the diagonal. That's why I got a diagonal cross stitch. So I just need to come directly across from it and then go forward rather than jumping forward on the diagonal. That's much better. So it doesn't take too long because you're actually, doing a little decent jump when you, where you pass your needle up the seam. So it's probably even less time than if you were doing the smaller cross overcast stitches over the edge. But again, you could do like a decorative blanket stitch if you wanted your stitches to actually be a focus. Here I guess I've got the beautiful fabric and I've got the clamshell, so I wanted the stitches just to blend away. And also the good thing about this is the stitches are pretty, they won't kind of catch on anything. So they're hidden away in the seams. Now I've got folds of fabric and I'm poking myself with my needle again. Wouldn't be a Christine video if she didn't skewer herself. Self-deprecating humour. That's what K3N, who I love watching as well. That's what she was talking about the other day. How some people think she's being serious when she says things. I like myself a bit of self-deprecating humour. Again, I'll just put a little holding stitch in here, a little little knot, and then I can just do an extra little stitch on the inside as well, just to hold ourselves nicely. As you can see, it looks great on on both sides. It just creates a really neat little stitch. So that's the bottom done. Now we just need to do the top, and then we can put all the pages in and you can see the finished product, and in less than an hour. I mean, obviously I've done some other work on this outside of the video, but it doesn't take too long to put it together. And I think it's a fun little made-up design, so feel free to use it. I have no preciousness about things when I make them up. Very happy. So I'm going to leave a little bit of extra because it is going to have things pushed in it, so I don't mind that it's kind of going to have a little bit of bulge. I just want it to be pretty straight down here. Again, we'll pop ourselves out over here. Pop our tail. Cut our tail off and then pop our tail inside. And then I'll just go, that's probably okay actually, maybe I'll just do a little stitch here. Just to hold us nice and secure to start. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spacing. Yeah, that's good. You can see the two petals there where you'd want to. Then I'll come along here and start the process. So same stitch again. So feel free to fast forward or fast forward through to when we're putting it all together, putting the things in, if this is not of excitement value to you. But I know many of you, like me, just like to have a video on while you're doing your own crafting, a bit of company in your craft room. I don't have exciting stories to tell. Sometimes I hear things and I think, oh, I've got to tell folks. I am relieved though to hear that the cyclone hasn't been that bad in Queensland. I think it's been downgraded now to a tropical low, so I hope all folks are okay. I think there's still concerns about the level of rain, but not the level of fear that was there about the damage it might cause. So that's definitely a relief, because I do have lovely viewers that are based in Queensland. Sometimes it's hard just to get your needle where you want it to be. And so the felt inside, just gives this a nice structure rather than just having the two bits of the fabric, and even the felt I used in this gives it a nice little bit of depth to it. Just pulling that through. Let's tighten up our little ladder stitches. Doing it held down to the table, but I'll hold it up a little bit more. One, because it might be easier for me, and two, might be easier for you to see. But if you have any questions about the ladder stitch, just let me know. But yeah, you're basically just taking your thread with the needle inside the little fold of fabric. Sometimes the needle wants to poke out like it's doing now. And then you're taking your needle back in directly across from where your thread is, so that you just get a tiny little stitch that crosses across the fabric but really gets invisibly hidden away when you tighten up your thread like that. So Sometimes it's even hard to see which side you're on or where your thread is. So now down to the end, and I'm just going to tighten up my thread. I'll put a little cross stitch just there to finish off there, and then I can just secrete. Again, I'll just need to tighten up, pull it nice and tight. Not so tight that it buckles though, so make sure it's straight, and then I'll just put a little stitch in on the inside. Just finish it off here. Nice and tight, and then I'll do a few little knot stitches to hold it in place. Oops, made a very knotty knot stitch. There we go. Just do one more for good luck. Didn't even go through the fabric. No wonder it was so easy to push the needle, because it wasn't really catching any threads. Done a knot again. Why do I keep doing that? And I'll just have to stitch that in, I think. So I'll just hide that one, because it's decided to secrete itself. Let's just hide that inside, and then I'll pop back through. Always seem to do that, put a little loop where I don't want it at the very end. Let's just get that secreted away. So I don't want anything that will sort of catch on things here. So just hold that down with another stitch. Okay, now final loop, and hopefully no miscreant loops. Perfect. Well, perfectly imperfect, and I just managed to put it into my glass. Luckily my glass didn't have any water in it. So let's make sure we're in frame. There we go. And let's pop in our little, so we've got our beautiful little embroidery textural piece. We've got our little folio flap. We've got our piece of wool. And again, you could put a little bead on the end of this wool if you wanted something else textural. Haven't yet decided, but that's probably enough. I don't think I need any more wool than that. I'll just tie a knot in the bottom of that wool. Just about there. That'll be fine. So that will be my little wrap there. In fact, I probably didn't need to go quite as tight with it, because I don't want it to kind of buckle up on itself. So just lay it flat and hold it a bit flatter when I do it, like that. And then I can pop my little threads that I want to have on hand to use stitching. And if you wanted, you could even put some little bits across, but I think this will hold it fine, and it'll be much easier to get them out and get them in when I can just put them in like this, really. And if I want a bit of wool as well. And then I've got my little pin cushion place to put my pin in, so I'll pop that in there. And then I can fold up my little pouch, and I can put my other little wrappy bit on, and then there we go. That is a great little, look how cute that looks with the little pom-pom there. It feels lovely. It's tactile, which this is all about texture that we're playing with at the moment. So there's so many lovely little textures, even a bit of no, it's not Travis fur, it is thread to play with, and a lovely little textural slow stitch folio. So hopefully that's given you some ideas. As I say, feel free to adapt and borrow and use as you please. Let me know if you're going to have a go at making one yourself or take some ideas from this for your own little projects. Thanks everyone, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.